June 19, 1944, 10:04 a.m. 20,000 feet above the Philippine Sea, the cockpit of a Japanese Zero vibrates with engine strain and salt-thick air. Sunlight flashes across the canopy as Lieutenant Masao Sato, a veteran naval aviator, tightens his grip on the control stick. Below him, the ocean looks calm. Deceptively calm. In his headset, clipped voices crackle. Contacts ahead. American aircraft. Again. Sato exhales through his nose, almost bored. He has been here before. Pearl Harbor. Rabaul. Guadalcanal. He has watched American pilots panic, scatter, climb too steeply, bleed energy, and die. He has chased them down in wide, graceful arcs, the Zero responding like a living thing beneath him. The Americans, he was told, fly cautiously, mechanically, like men afraid of the sky. Ahead, silver dots grow larger. Easy, he mutters, easing the Zero forward. You can almost feel what he feels, confidence hardened into instinct. This is what victory feels like before it slips away. 3 years earlier, this belief had been everywhere in the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service. In 1941 and early 1942, Japanese fighter pilots were not merely trained, they were forged. Years of brutal selection, hundreds of flight hours, relentless dogfighting drills. Men like Saburo Sakai, Hiroyoshi Nishizawa, and Tetsuzo Iwamoto became legends while still alive. Against them, early American pilots looked unprepared, even clumsy. At Pearl Harbor, American fighters barely made it into the air. At Wake Island and the Philippines, U.S. aircraft fell in flames. Japanese after-action reports were blunt. American pilots lacked aggression. They broke off too early. They feared close combat. And the Zero, light, maneuverable, deadly, seemed to prove it. Japanese aviators learned to mock their enemy quietly. The Americans relied on armor and radios, they said. On rules. On safety. Real pilots trusted skill and spirit. By 1942, this belief hardened into doctrine. But war does not stand still. While Japanese pilots flew mission after mission, slowly bleeding experience with every loss, something very different was happening across the Pacific. In classrooms, on airfields, in factories humming day and night, the Americans were learning, not faster in the air, but faster as a system. They studied losses. They rewrote manuals. They rotated pilots home to teach what worked and what didn't. They standardized training so that a new pilot arriving at the front didn't rely on instinct alone, but on shared knowledge burned into muscle memory. And then there was the airplane. The Grumman F6F Hellcat. At first glance, it looked unimpressive. Heavy, broad-winged, built like a truck. Japanese intelligence officers dismissed it as another inferior American compromise, too slow to turn, too big to matter. But the Hellcat was never meant to outturn the Zero. It was meant to kill it. Back in the sky over the Philippine Sea, Lieutenant Sato rolls his Zero left, lining up what he assumes will be another predictable engagement. The American formation is tighter than usual, but that hardly concerns him. Then something feels wrong. The American fighters don't scatter. They don't climb wildly or peel away. They wait. The silver shapes surge forward together, engines roaring, not climbing sharply, not turning blindly, but diving with terrifying discipline. Their noses stay down. Their speed builds. Sato's eyes narrow. These aren't the Americans he remembers. The lead aircraft flashes past his canopy, blue-gray paint, a thick fuselage, 6 machine guns blazing. Tracers stitch the sky where he was, not where he is. He jerks the stick, pulling into a tight turn, the Zero's strength. For a heartbeat, it works. Then another Hellcat slashes through the turn, cutting across his circle with brutal speed, firing without hesitation. They're not turning with him. They're hunting him. All across the sky that morning, Japanese pilots feel the same unease creeping in. Radios fill with confusion. American fighters appear above them, then below, then behind. Hellcats dive, fire, climb, and reset. Again. And again. The Zero's legendary agility suddenly feels like a trap. Because every turn costs speed. And speed, the Hellcat pilots know, is life. These Americans don't chase kills recklessly. They fight in pairs, in sections, covering each other, breaking off before danger appears. They do exactly what Japanese pilots once accused them of, except now it works. Far below, U.S. carriers launch wave after wave, their decks a conveyor belt of fuel, ammunition, and replacement pilots. The Japanese carriers, fewer and farther apart, struggle to respond. By midday, the sky is littered with falling aircraft. And for the first time, Japanese pilots are the ones asking a dangerous question. When did the Americans learn how to fight like this? Lieutenant Sato pushes his Zero into a shallow dive, trying to disengage. His fuel is low. His hands are slick with sweat. He glances at the engine gauges, then at the empty sky where his wingman should be. A shadow crosses his canopy. Another Hellcat. Closer than the last. And this one isn't overshooting. As Sato rolls hard, the American pilot stays with him, calm, precise, relentless. In that instant, the old certainty finally cracks. This isn't about courage anymore. This is about something else entirely. And the Japanese Navy is about to learn what happens when experience meets an enemy who has finally caught up and gone further. Type continue to generate the next section. The Hellcat stays glued to Lieutenant Sato's tail. Not recklessly close. Not impatient. Just close enough. Its engine note is deeper than the Zero's, less frantic, more controlled. Sato yanks the stick again, forcing the Zero into another tight turn, wings shuddering at the edge of a stall. 4 years, this maneuver had been a guarantee. Americans couldn't follow it. Their heavier aircraft would lag, overshoot, or break away. But the Hellcat doesn't bite. It doesn't turn with him. Instead, it climbs. Straight up. For a split second, Sato thinks he's won. The Zero whips around, nose lifting to fire. Then the Hellcat drops back down like a hammer. 6 50 caliber machine guns open at once. The sky tears apart. The Zero jolts violently as rounds punch through aluminum skin never designed to take punishment. Fuel sprays. Smoke pours from the engine. This isn't a duel. It's an execution. The difference isn't bravery. Japanese pilots had never lacked that. The difference is doctrine. By 1943, American naval aviation had undergone a quiet revolution. Every lesson learned in blood, at Coral Sea, at Midway, over Guadalcanal, had been written down, tested, and taught. Pilots arriving on carrier decks didn't rely on folklore or individual genius. They relied on procedures. They knew not to turn with the Zero. They knew to keep speed. They knew to fight vertically, not horizontally. And most importantly, they knew they were never alone. The Hellcat was designed around these principles. It could absorb damage that would shred a Zero. Its self-sealing fuel tanks gave pilots a second chance Japanese aviators never had. Its powerful Pratt & Whitney engine allowed it to dive away, climb back up, and choose when to fight. Every engagement followed a rhythm drilled into muscle memory. Attack, fire, brake, reset, again. Back over the Philippine Sea, Japanese formations begin to unravel. Pilots who once trusted instinct now find themselves isolated. Their radios, often unreliable even at the best of times, fill with clipped warnings and sudden silence. Veteran aces scan the sky for wingmen who never appear. And still the Hellcats keep coming. Wave after wave. They aren't improvising. They're executing. Below, the sea tells its own story. Burning aircraft skip across the water, sending pillars of steam into the air. Parachutes bloom, some. Others never open. This battle will later be called the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. The name is cruel and devastatingly accurate. On the American side, Lieutenant Commander David McCampbell scans the sky calmly, already tallying victories. He doesn't chase recklessly. He waits for mistakes. And the mistakes come again and again. Japanese pilots climb too steeply, turn too tightly, fight the way they always have. And the Hellcats punish them for it. What the Japanese Navy fails to grasp, until it's far too late, is that they aren't fighting individual pilots anymore. They're fighting an engine. Behind every Hellcat in the air is a replacement pilot in training. Behind every loss is a factory already building another aircraft. Pilots rotate home, teach new recruits, refine tactics, and return. Knowledge compounds. Japan cannot afford this. Its training pipeline is long, rigid, and elite, but fragile. When veterans die, their experience dies with them. There is no mass rotation, no system to capture lessons learned in real time. By 1944, many Japanese pilots entering combat have fewer than 100 flight hours. They are brave, and they are doomed. Lieutenant Sato fights the dying Zero toward the clouds, engine coughing. He knows he won't make it back to the carrier. He knows that even if he survives this fight, there may not be a carrier left to land on. As he looks down at the ocean rushing closer, something bitter settles in his chest. It isn't fear, it's recognition. The Americans didn't beat them with a better term. They beat them with preparation, with patience, with a refusal to romanticize air combat as a test of spirit alone. The sky, once the domain of individual heroes, has become something colder, more modern. By the end of the day, Japanese losses are catastrophic. Hundreds of aircraft destroyed, carrier air groups shattered. The surviving pilots retreat, shaken, speaking in low voices about the enemy's discipline, their coordination, their impossible numbers. The old jokes disappear. The mockery dies. Because now, everyone knows. The Americans are no longer learning. They have learned. And what comes next will decide the fate of the Pacific War itself. But even this massacre is only the beginning. Because the Hellcat Squadrons aren't done. And the Japanese Navy has just crossed the point of no return. Type Continue to generate the next section. The sun is already sinking when the last Japanese aircraft limp away from the Philippine Sea. Smoke still hangs in the air, drifting across the water in thin gray ribbons. American carriers turn into the wind, decks alive with motion, signal flags snapping, arresting cables resetting, deck crews already preparing for the next launch. For the U.S. Navy, the battle feels decisive. For the Japanese survivors, it feels unreal. On damaged carriers like Zuikaku, pilots sit silently in cramped ready rooms, flight suits streaked with oil and sweat. Some stare at the deck. Others keep their helmets on, as if removing them would make what just happened undeniable. They have never seen losses like this. Not at Pearl Harbor. Not in the early days of the war. Not ever. And worse than the numbers is what those numbers mean. In earlier battles, losses hurt, but veterans remained. Men who had trained since the 1930s. Men who could teach, lead, correct mistakes in the air with a glance or a radio call. Now, many of those men are gone. The few who survive try to explain what they faced. They speak of American pilots who refused to be baited, of aircraft that absorbed damage and kept flying, of formations that never broke, even when attacked from multiple directions. You can hear the disbelief in their voices, not because the Americans fought bravely, but because they fought correctly. Back in Japan, the reality hits harder. Training commanders already know the truth, even if they won't say it aloud. The pipeline is exhausted. Fuel shortages limit flight hours. New pilots receive only a fraction of the training their predecessors enjoyed. Carrier qualifications are rushed or skipped entirely. And now those undertrained pilots will be sent to face Hellcats flown by men who have practiced the same maneuvers hundreds of times. It is not a contest. It is arithmetic. American doctrine continues to evolve. The Hellcat Squadrons refine their methods with almost mechanical precision. Pilots are debriefed immediately after missions. Gun camera footage is reviewed. Mistakes are identified and corrected before the next launch. No shame. No mysticism. Just improvement. The result is terrifying efficiency. By late 1944, Hellcat pilots achieve kill ratios that would have sounded like propaganda earlier in the war. Some squadrons report double-digit victories in a single day with minimal losses. And the Japanese pilots know it. They feel it the moment they lift off. In the air, a new pattern emerges. Japanese pilots no longer seek engagement. They avoid it. They fly low, hoping clouds will hide them. They break formation early. They attack once, if at all, then run. The sky, once their sanctuary, has turned hostile. Every glint of sunlight could be a Hellcat diving from above. Every radio call could be the last. Lieutenant Sato does not return from the Philippine Sea. His Zero vanishes into the water without witnesses, one of dozens that day. No report captures his final thoughts. No memorial records the exact moment his confidence turned to understanding. But thousands of Japanese aviators experience the same realization in the months that follow. The war in the air is no longer about courage or honor or the purity of the fight. It is about systems. And Japan is losing to one it cannot match. As 1945 approaches, a darker adaptation begins. With trained pilots gone and carriers sinking faster than they can be replaced, the Imperial Navy searches for another answer. Something that does not require years of training. Something that trades experience for certainty. The result will shock even hardened American aviators. Because the next time Hellcats rise to meet Japanese aircraft, the pilots inside will no longer be trying to survive. They will be trying to die. And that realization will mark the final, tragic transformation of Japanese air power. Type continue to generate the next section. October 25, 1944. The Battle of Leyte Gulf is already spiraling into chaos when radar operators aboard American carriers pick up something strange. Incoming aircraft. Too low, too fast, and flying straight. Hellcat pilots scramble, engines screaming as they climb into a sky they believe they understand. But what they see unsettles them. Japanese aircraft are not maneuvering. They are not forming up. They are not turning away when intercepted. They are coming in deliberately, relentlessly. Lieutenant Junior Grade Thomas Reeves pushes his Hellcat forward, lining up on a single Zero that refuses to break. Tracers streak past the cockpit. The Japanese plane keeps coming, engine roaring, wings steady. Brake, brake. Someone shouts over the radio. It doesn't. The Zero slams into the carrier USS St. Lo, exploding in fire and steel. For a moment, no one speaks. This isn't a tactic. It's a message. The Americans quickly understand what they are facing. Kamikaze attacks. Pilots trained just enough to take off, point their aircraft, and never return. No dogfight. No retreat. No fear of being outflown. The old rules no longer apply. And even now, the Hellcat proves decisive. Hellcat pilots intercept the attackers far from the fleet, using speed and altitude to tear into formations before they can dive. Anti-aircraft fire thickens the sky. Coordination tightens. But something has changed emotionally, because skill no longer guarantees safety. For Japanese leadership, the shift is an admission no document will ever state plainly. They have lost the air war. Not tactically, structurally. The men who once mocked American training standards are gone. Their replacements cannot be trained fast enough. The Hellcats patrol skies Japan can no longer contest. So the sky itself is weaponized. Back on American carriers, pilots sit in ready rooms after missions, staring at empty chairs. They talk quietly now. The thrill of victory is gone, replaced by something heavier. They won the contest of skill. They won the contest of industry. But they are now fighting men who no longer expect to survive. And that truth lingers long after the engines shut down. The Grumman F6F Hellcat will finish the war as the most successful carrier fighter in history. Over 5,000 enemy aircraft destroyed. A kill ratio so lopsided it rewrites what air superiority means. But numbers don't capture the real legacy. The Hellcat marks the moment air combat stops being a contest of legends and becomes a contest of systems. Training pipelines, logistics, communication, discipline. The moment arrogance gives way to realization. In the early days of the war, Japanese pilots laughed at American caution. They mistook it for weakness. What they didn't see, what they couldn't see, was that caution was the foundation of something far more dangerous. A force that learned, adapted, and returned stronger every time. By the time the truth became impossible to ignore, the sky no longer belonged to them. It belonged to the Hellcats. Yendi.